I was sold to the
Go on.
ruthless
Don't make
alpha,
him wait.
but he didn't expect me to be his mate. A dark romantic werewolf story. The price of blood. The moment my father sold me, I felt death watching from the trees. Not metaphorically, not poetically. Actual death. With golden eyes and claws that had torn throats in a dozen battles. Actual death, sitting on a black horse at the edge of our territory, waiting to take possession of the goods. That was me. The goods. My father's hand pressed against my back, shoving me forward. His fingers trembled. Good. Let him tremble. Let him remember this moment every night for the rest of his life. Go on, he whispered. Don't make him wait. I looked back at him, at the man who had raised me, fed me, told me stories when I was small and scared of the dark. At the man who was now selling me to a wolf known for leaving bodies where other wolves left warnings. I hate you, I said quietly. He flinched, looked away, didn't answer. I turned and walked toward death. Let me tell you something about our world. Werewolves aren't like in the stories humans tell. We don't run free through moonlit forests, howling at the sky, living some romantic dream of wildness. We survive, that's all. We survive in packs, because alone we die. And survival has a price. At the top of every pack sits the alpha, the strongest, the fiercest, the one who can kill anything that threatens his wolves. Below him, the betas, his enforcers, his warriors, his right and left hands. Below them, the fighters, the hunters, the wolves who keep the pack fed and safe. Below them, everyone else. And at the very bottom, beneath even the lowest worker, beneath the oldest elder, beneath the smallest child, the Omegas. That's where my family lives. That's where I was born. My father is an Omega. My mother is an Omega. My brothers and sisters, all Omegas. We serve. We clean. We exist on what the pack doesn't want. Sleep where the pack doesn't sleep. Survive because the pack allows it. We have no value. Except one. Omega females are fertile. Something about the bloodline, about bodies that learn to reproduce, because reproduction is the only power they'll ever have. The elders say Omega wombs are blessed by the moon herself, cursed to carry life while carrying nothing else. I don't know if that's true. But I know that when the Silver Crescent pack needed wolves, when rogues killed their warriors, when their numbers dropped too low to hold their territory, someone remembered that Omega bloodlines produce pups. Someone remembered my family. Someone told my father that if he didn't offer one of his daughters, the pack would stop feeding all of us. My mother cried for 3 days. My sisters hid in the forest. My brothers stood in doorways, silent and ashamed. And I walked into my father's room on the 4th day and told him I would go. Because someone had to. Because my sisters were younger. Because my parents had given me 19 years of life, however small, however cold, however hungry. And I owed them something for that. I owed them survival. So I stood in the mud while strangers watched. I walked toward a wolf who had never shown mercy. I prepared to become property. And then I got close enough to see his face. His name was Draven, alpha of the Silver Crescent pack. Lichen blood running through his veins, not just wolf, but something older, something darker. Something that made other alphas lower their eyes when he passed. I'd heard stories about him my whole life. Every Omega child hears stories about the wolves above them, the wolves who could crush them without thought. Draven was the monster in those stories, The wolf who killed his own father to take the alpha position. The wolf who led his pack through a war that should have destroyed them. The wolf who, they said, had never loved anything in his life. Now I stood 3 feet from him, and I couldn't breathe. He sat on that black horse like he'd been born there, like the animal was just an extension of his body, another weapon in his arsenal. Broad shoulders, jaw sharp enough to cut, hair black as a moonless night, pulled back from a face that had seen too much and forgotten how to feel. His eyes found me. Dark. So dark I couldn't see where the pupil ended and the iris began. Dark like the space between stars. Dark like the moment before death. He looked at me like I was nothing, because to him I was. The price was agreed. His voice, low, rough. The kind of voice that didn't ask, didn't negotiate, didn't care. 200 gold, your daughter. The transaction is complete. My father nodded, still not meeting anyone's eyes. She's healthy, strong. She'll give you strong pups. I flinched. Pups. Like I was breeding stock. Like my only value was what my body could produce. Draven's expression didn't change, didn't flicker, didn't react at all. Get on. He didn't offer his hand, didn't move, just sat there, waiting for me to figure out how to climb onto a horse behind a monster. I grabbed the saddle, pulled myself up, settled behind him, my body pressing against his back because there was nowhere else to put it. And the world stopped. I felt it immediately. Heat. Not from his body, though he was warm, furnace warm like all wolves. Different heat. Deeper heat. Heat that started where my chest touched his back and spread through me like fire through dry grass. My wolf woke up. For 19 years my wolf had been quiet, present but distant, like a voice in another room. That's how it is for omegas. Our wolves learn to be small, to be still, to not draw attention. We survive by being invisible. But now my wolf was screaming. Mate! The word wasn't spoken, it was felt. Felt in my bones, my blood, my soul. Felt in every cell of my body. Suddenly recognizing that this monster, this killer, this wolf who had just purchased me, was the one. The only one. The mate the moon had chosen for me since before I was born. No, not him. Anyone but him. But the bond didn't care about my fear. Didn't care about politics or power or the fact that he'd just bought me like livestock. The bond simply was. Permanent. Unbreakable. Real. And he felt it too. I knew the moment he did. His body, which had been relaxed against mine, went rigid. His hands, holding the reins, clenched until the leather creaked. His breath caught, just once, just a hitch, just enough for me to notice. What did you just do? His voice, different now, not the flat alpha voice, something rougher, something almost shaken. I couldn't speak, couldn't form words, could only sit there pressed against him, feeling the bond pulse between us like a second heartbeat. He turned, just enough to see my face. His eyes, those dark, empty eyes, weren't empty anymore. Something flickered there, something that looked terrifyingly like recognition. You felt it too, he breathed. It wasn't a question. I nodded. Couldn't lie. The bond wouldn't let me. He stared at me for 1 heartbeat, 2, 3. Then he faced forward again. The horse started moving, and neither of us said another word for the rest of the ride. The journey took hours. I spent them pressed against the back of my mate, feeling the bond stretch and settle and grow stronger with every passing mile. Feeling his wolf press against my mind, curious, hungry, possessive. Feeling my wolf press back, terrified, but also something else. Hope. Stupid, desperate hope. Because the bond wasn't just pain, it wasn't just fate, it was also right. Like finding a part of myself I hadn't known was missing. Like coming home to a place I'd never been. I hated it. Hated that my body recognized him. Hated that my wolf wanted him. Hated that some part of me, some deep and stupid part, was already imagining what it would be like to be chosen, to be wanted, to be loved. He wouldn't love me. Couldn't. I was an omega. He was an alpha with lichen blood. We weren't just different ranks. We were different species of wolf. The gap between us was wider than the gap between wolves and humans. But the bond didn't care about gaps. The bond only cared about him, about me, about the two of us being one. By the time we reached Silver Crescent territory, I was shaking. The pack waited at the border. Dozens of wolves, warriors in leather armor, betas with hard eyes and harder faces. Elders leaning on carved staffs, watching with the weight of years and wisdom. They all stared at me, at the omega on their alpha's horse, at the nobody pressed against their leader's back, at the girl who smelled wrong, who smelled like something that shouldn't exist. I saw the moment some of them understood. A beta, broad-shouldered, grey-eyed, with scars crossing both forearms, stepped closer, sniffed the air, sniffed again. His eyes went wide. Alpha? Draven's voice was flat. She's a purchase, from the Shadow Creek pack. Put her in the Omega quarters. But Alpha, her scent, I said put her in the Omega quarters. The beta hesitated, looked at me, looked at Draven, looked at me again. Something like pity crossed his face, quickly hidden, but there. He knew. He could smell what I was, what I'd become, what his alpha had just brought into their pack. Yes, Alpha. He approached me, gently, like I might break. Come with me, he said quietly. I'll show you where to sleep. I looked back at Draven. He still wouldn't look at me. Wouldn't look as I slid off his horse. Wouldn't look as I walked away. Isn't look as his beta led me towards the cold, dark buildings where wolves like me belonged. But I felt him. Felt the moment I moved out of range. Felt the bond stretch, thin, pull taut. Felt his wolf howl inside him, desperate and furious and heartbroken. And I felt the moment he finally looked. I didn't turn around, didn't need to. The bond told me. Told me he was watching me go. Told me his hands were shaking. Told me his jaw was tight and his eyes were silver. And his whole body screamed with the need to call me back. But he didn't. The alpha who had never shown mercy let me walk away. And I didn't know if that was cruelty or kindness. The Omega quarters were exactly what I expected. Cold, crowded, dark. Wolves slept in rows on thin mats, their bodies curled against each other for warmth. The smell was overwhelming. Unwashed bodies, fear, resignation. The sound was worse. Not crying, not talking, just silence. The silence of wolves who had learned that noise drew attention, and attention meant pain. The beta, his name was Theron, I learned later, found me an empty mat near the wall. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for all of this. I didn't know what to say, didn't know what to feel, didn't know anything except the burning ache where the bond pulled toward Draven, toward the alpha who didn't want me, toward the mate who had just walked away. Theron hesitated at the door. He's not what they say. He's not cruel for no reason. He's just, stop. The voice came from the shadows. An older Omega woman, grey-haired and sharp-eyed, sitting up on her mat. Don't make excuses for him, Theron. Don't fill her head with hope. Hope is the worst thing you can give an Omega in this pack. Theron's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue, just nodded once and left. The woman looked at me. Her eyes were kind somehow, kind in a way that hurt.
How old are you, child?
19. She nodded slowly. Young enough to survive, young enough to heal. She paused. Did he mark you yet? I shook my head, not understanding. Good. She lay back down. Keep it that way. Don't let him touch you. Don't let him near you. Don't let the bond pull you into thinking this is love. It's not. It's biology. It's fate. It's the universe playing its cruelest joke, giving an Omega a mate who will never, ever choose her. I wanted to argue, wanted to tell her that Draven had felt it too, that I'd seen his hands shake, that I'd felt his wolf cry out. But I didn't. Because she was right, wasn't she? He let me go. He walked away. He chose pack politics and reputation and whatever future he'd planned over the bond that screamed between us. And I lay on a cold mat in a room full of forgotten wolves, feeling my mate reject me in every way except words, wondering how something that felt so right could hurt so much. 3 days passed. 3 days of learning the rhythms of Omega life. 3 days of watching wolves who had nothing survive on less. 3 days of feeling the bond pull toward Draven, toward the Alpha House, toward the wolf who wouldn't come. But on the third night, he came. I felt him before I heard him. The bond, stretched thin across the pack grounds, suddenly pulled tight, pulled hard, pulled like a rope being yanked from the other end. I sat up on my mat, heart pounding. The Omega Quarters door opened. Draven stood in the doorway, moonlight behind him, shadows across his face. His eyes, those dark, dark eyes, found mine instantly. Like he'd known exactly where I'd be. Like he'd tracked me through the bond without meaning to. The other Omegas woke, scrambled back, pressed against walls. Fear flooded the room, thick and sour. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but watch him walk toward me. He stopped at the foot of my mat, looked down at me. His jaw was tight. His hands, at his sides, were clenched into fists. I can't sleep. 3 words. Low, rough, like they'd been pulled from somewhere deep. I stared at him. Every time I close my eyes, he continued, I feel you. I feel the bond. I feel you reaching for me, even when you're not. I feel your loneliness, your fear, your hope. His voice cracked on the last word. I came to tell you to stop. I found my voice somehow. Stop what? Stop hoping. He looked away, looked at the wall, the floor, anywhere but me. I can't be what you need. I can't be a mate. I can't be gentle or kind or anything you deserve. I'm not that wolf anymore. Maybe I never was. You don't know me. My voice was stronger than I felt. You don't know what I need. He looked back at me then, and for one moment, one heartbeat, one frozen second, I saw something beneath the mask. Pain. Real pain. The kind that doesn't come from wounds, but from years of carrying weight no one should carry alone. I know what I am, he said quietly, and I know what happens to wolves who get close to me. They die, or worse, they become like me. He turned to leave. The bond screamed. I didn't think, didn't plan, didn't consider the consequences. I just moved, grabbed his wrist, stopped him. He went rigid, the same way he had on the horse. the same way he did every time I touched him, like my skin against his was fire, like it burned, like it saved. "Don't," I whispered. "Don't walk away again. Don't decide for me what I can handle. Don't—" He turned, fast, grabbed me, pulled me against him, and kissed me. The kiss wasn't gentle, wasn't soft, wasn't anything like I'd imagined my first kiss with my mate would be. It was desperate, hungry, furious. Like he'd been starving for 19 years and I was the first meal he'd seen. His hands gripped my waist, pulled me closer, held me like I might disappear. His mouth moved against mine like he was trying to consume me, claim me, make me part of him. And I kissed him back. I kissed him like I'd been starving too. Like every lonely night, every cold meal, every moment of being invisible had led to this. Like my wolf had known all along that this, him, was the only thing that would ever make us whole. But then he stopped, pulled back, looked at me with eyes gone silver, wolf so close to the surface I could feel it pressing against my mind. "This changes nothing," he breathed. And behind him, in the doorway, stood a wolf I hadn't seen enter. A woman, beautiful, powerful, dressed in the furs of an alpha's daughter, watching us with eyes that promised death. The other woman. Her name was Lilian, daughter of Alpha Marcus of the Crimson Dawn Pack. Beautiful in the way that wealthy wolves are beautiful, polished, perfect, practiced. She stood in the Omega Quarter's doorway like she owned the building, owned the pack, owned him. And the look she gave me made my blood freeze. "So," she said softly, "this is the breeder." The word hit like a slap. Breeder. Not wolf, not woman, not mate. Breeder. Draven's hands were still on my waist. I felt them tighten, felt the conflict in him, the urge to protect, warring with the urge to push me away, to hide me, to pretend I didn't exist. He did neither. He let me go, stepped back, put distance between us, like distance could undo what had just happened. "Lilian." His voice was flat, controlled, the alpha voice. "What are you doing here?" She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "I came to see my future pack, to meet the wolves I'll be leading beside you." Her gaze slid to me. "I didn't expect to find you sampling the merchandise." The other Omegas pressed further against the walls. They knew her, knew what she was, knew what she represented. I understood in that moment. She was a mate Draven was supposed to have. The political match. The union between packs that would make Silver Crescent strong again. The alliance that would save his people from whoever was hunting them. And I was the Omega who had just kissed her future husband. Let me explain something about pack politics. When a pack is dying, when warriors fall, when territory shrinks, when enemies circle, the Alpha's first duty is survival. Not his own survival, the pack's. Every decision, every alliance, every sacrifice must serve one purpose, keeping his wolves alive. Draven's pack was dying. I'd learned that much from Omega Whispers. The rogue attacks that had killed so many warriors weren't random. They were planned. Someone was bleeding. Silver Crescent, slowly, carefully, deliberately. Killing warriors, destroying supplies, pushing borders. And the only pack powerful enough to help, the only pack close enough to matter, was Crimson Dawn, led by Alpha Marcus, who had a daughter, who needed a mate worthy of her status, who had her eyes set on Draven. The alliance was almost complete. The negotiations were almost finished. The mating ceremony was scheduled for the next full moon. And then Draven had bought an Omega for breeding. And then that Omega had turned out to be his mate. And then he'd kissed her in front of witnesses. I understood all of this in the space between heartbeats. Understood it because the Omegas had whispered it. Because the air itself carried the weight of it. Because Lillian's eyes told me everything I needed to know about what I just walked into. I was standing in the middle of a political minefield, and I had just stepped on every mine at once. Lillian walked into the room like she owned it. Her furs brushed the floor. Her scent, expensive, floral, carefully cultivated, cut through the Omega stink like a blade. Wolves scrambled out of her path. Even the older Omega woman, the one who'd warned me about hope, pressed herself against the wall. Lillian stopped inches from me, looked me up and down, smiled. "You're prettier than I expected." Her voice was honey over knives. Most Omegas are so worn, so used. But you still have some shine left. I suppose that's why he bought you. I said nothing, couldn't speak, couldn't move. Her presence pressed against me like physical weight. She reached out, touched my face. Her fingers were cold. "Don't worry," she whispered, soft enough that only I could hear. "I won't hurt you. You're too useful for that. But I need you to understand something." She leaned closer. Her lips brushed my ear. "He will never choose you. Not because you're not worthy, not because you're not his mate, but because choosing you would mean watching his pack die. And Draven," she pulled back, smiled warmly, "Draven would rather die himself than watch another wolf die for him." She turned to face him. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she announced. "Father wants me home before the moon rises. But I return for the ceremony." She paused. "Unless, of course, you've changed your mind about the alliance?" The room held its breath. Draven's face was stone. "The alliance stands." "And the mating?" A longer pause. I felt the bond wrench inside me, felt him fighting, felt his wolf raging. "The mating stands." Lillian smiled, kissed his cheek, glanced back at me with eyes that said everything and nothing. "Good. I'll see you at the full moon then." She left. The door closed behind her, and Draven stood in the middle of the Omega quarters, surrounded by witnesses, and wouldn't look at me. The next days were the hardest of my life. Harder than watching my father count coins. Harder than riding away from everything I'd known. Harder than the cold nights in Omega quarters. Because now I knew that my mate was promised to someone else. Knew that the bond between us, as real as it was, as burning as it was, would never be enough. Knew that every moment I spent near him put his pack at risk, put his alliance at risk, put his people at risk. And still the bond pulled. Every night I felt him lying in his alpha quarters, staring at the ceiling, fighting the same battle I fought. Felt his wolf pacing, howling, desperate. Felt the moment he almost gave in, almost came to me, almost chose the bond over duty. And every night he didn't. I learned to hate the moon, hated how it rose, beautiful and indifferent, while I lay awake in the dark. Hated how it reminded me of the full moon coming, the ceremony coming, the moment when Draven would bind himself to someone else. The Omegas watched me with pity. They'd seen this before, they said. Not mates exactly. Mates between Alphas and Omegas were almost unheard of. But they'd seen wolves who wanted things they couldn't have. Wolves who loved people who couldn't love them back. Survival, the older woman told me. Her name was Marta. She'd been in Omega quarters for 40 years. That's all that matters. Forget the bond. Forget him. Focus on surviving. But he's my mate. She laughed, bitter, broken. Child, in this world, that just means you have more to lose. On the 5th night, Theron found me, the beta who'd escorted me to Omega quarters. He appeared at the door after the evening meal, when the other Omegas were settling to sleep. The Alpha wants to see you. My heart stopped.
Started again.
Stopped. Why? Theron's face was unreadable. He didn't say, just said to bring you. I followed him through the pack grounds, past the warrior quarters, where wolves trained even at night, past the gathering hall, where voices murmured in urgent discussion, past the Alpha house, where I'd expected to go. We kept walking, toward the forest, toward the border. Where are we going? Theron didn't answer, just kept walking, his pace steady, his silence heavy. The forest closed around us, dark, cold, full of sounds I didn't recognize. My wolf pressed against my skin, nervous, warning. Theron, stop. He stopped, turned, looked at me with something like apology. He's not waiting for you in the forest. There is no meeting. I didn't understand. Then why? Because some things are bigger than mates, bigger than packs, bigger than any of us. He stepped closer. And sometimes, the only way to protect someone is to make them hate you. Behind him, wolves emerged from the shadows, not silver crescent wolves, strangers, their scents wrong, their eyes wrong, their smiles wrong. I'm sorry, Theron said, and he meant it, but your existence is destroying him, and if he's destroyed, we all die. The strangers surrounded me, and the last thing I saw before darkness took me was Theron turning away. I woke in chains, stone walls, damp air, the smell of wolves who weren't wolves at all. Something else beneath the fur, beneath the skin, beneath the mask. I was in a cage, small, cold, too low to stand, too narrow to lie flat. Iron bars that burned when I touched them. Silver, I realized. Silver woven into the metal. My wolf whimpered. The silver poisoned us both, weakened us, made it impossible to shift. Ah, she wakes. A voice from the shadows. Female. Familiar. A figure stepped into the torchlight. Lillian. She looked different now. The polished Alpha's daughter was gone. In her place stood something older, something darker, something that smiled at me like a cat smiles at a mouse. You're wondering why, she said. You're wondering how. You're wondering what Theron has to do with any of this. She crouched outside my cage. Her eyes, in the torchlight, flickered with something that wasn't wolf at all. Let me tell you a secret, little Omega. The rogues attacking Silver Crescent, the warriors dying, the pack bleeding slow. She smiled. That's me. That's my family. That's been the plan for 20 years. I stared at her, understanding and horror mixing in my chest. The alliance, I whispered. The mating. It's all a trap, yes. She laughed. Soft, pleased. Draven marries me. Our packs merge. My father becomes alpha of both. And Draven? She shrugged. Accidents happen. Rogues are unpredictable. Alpha wolves die in battle all the time. No. No? She stood, looked down at me with pity. You think your little bond can save him? You think fate cares about politics, about survival, about the thousands of wolves who will die if your mate doesn't do exactly what I want? She turned to leave. But don't worry, you'll get to watch. From here, from this cage. You'll watch him marry me. You'll watch him die. And then, when it's over, when there's no one left who remembers you were his mate, she glanced back. I'll kill you too. Slowly, so you can feel what I felt when I saw him kiss you. The torchlight faded. The darkness swallowed everything. And somewhere, far away, I felt the bond pulse with Draven's confusion, his fear, his desperate search for me. He didn't know where I was. He didn't know what was coming. And I couldn't tell him. The hunt. 3 days. That's how long I sat in that cage, counting the torch flickers, measuring time in the slow burn of silver against my skin. 3 days of listening to wolves, who weren't wolves, talk about weddings and murders and the death of packs. 3 days of feeling the bond stretch thinner and thinner until I thought it might snap. 3 days of waiting to die. But on the 4th day, something changed. The air shifted. The wolves outside my cell grew restless. Voices rose in argument, then fell to whispers. Footsteps hurried past, stopped, hurried back. And then, distant but unmistakable, howling. Not ordinary howling, not the song of wolves greeting the moon. This was different. This was hunting howls, tracking howls, the sound of wolves on a trail, the sound of wolves coming for blood. Let me tell you what it feels like to be found. It feels like hope and terror mixed together, like the moment before impact, when you know something's coming but don't know if it will save you or kill you. The wolves outside my cage knew what the howling meant. I heard them scramble, heard weapons drawn, heard fear in voices that had been confident just hours before. He can't have tracked her here. It's impossible. The bond, you said yourself, the bond between them is... The bond doesn't work that way. It can't. She's too far. The silver blocks. A crash from somewhere above. Stone breaking. Wolves screaming. The sounds of battle, claws and teeth and the wet, terrible noise of bodies falling. I pressed against the back of my cage, watched the cell entrance, waited. More screams, closer now. The scrape of claws on stone. A body tumbled through the doorway, one of my guards, throat torn out, eyes still wide with shock. And then, through the blood and shadows and torchlight, Draven. He was shifted, partially, the most dangerous form, the one that combined wolf strength with human cunning. His eyes were solid silver. His claws dripped red. His chest heaved with the effort of killing his way through whatever stood between us. Our eyes met, and the bond, stretched thin and dying, exploded back to life. Found you. He didn't speak, didn't need to. The words traveled through the bond like lightning, like fire, like everything I'd been missing for 3 days. I was crying. Didn't know when I'd started, didn't care. He crossed the cell in 3 strides, grabbed the cage door, pulled. The lock held. He pulled again, harder. The metal groaned. Behind him, more guards appeared. More enemies. More wolves who wanted us dead. Draven! He didn't look back, didn't stop pulling. The cage door bent more. The metal screamed. An enemy lunged. Draven spun, caught the wolf mid-air, tore, dropped the body, turned back to the cage. One more pull. The door ripped open. He reached inside, grabbed me, pulled me out. And for one moment, one heartbeat, one breath, we were just 2 wolves holding each other in the middle of a battlefield. Then the real fight began. We ran. Draven carried me. I was too weak from silver exposure to run myself, too damaged to shift, too broken to do anything but hold on. He ran like death was behind him, because it was. Ran through tunnels I hadn't known existed, through caves and passages, and places so dark I couldn't see my own hands. Behind us, the sounds of pursuit, howls, curses, the crash of wolves following.
They'll track us,
I gasped against his chest. They have wolves, trackers, they'll… I know. His voice was calm, too calm. The calm of someone who'd already made a decision. I know. We burst from the tunnels into moonlight. Forest surrounded us, trees so old they blotted out the sky, undergrowth so thick it caught at our feet. Draven kept running, didn't slow, didn't stop. Where are we going? Somewhere they can't follow. Where? He didn't answer, but I felt it through the bond, felt the weight of what he was planning, felt the sacrifice he'd already made. He wasn't running to save us. He was running to give me time. Time to escape, time to hide, time to live. Because he didn't plan to survive this. The cave was small, hidden behind a waterfall that drowned our scent, our sound, our trail. Draven carried me inside, set me down on dry stone, and stood at the entrance, waiting. Draven. He didn't turn. Draven, look at me. He turned. His eyes were human now, brown and tired and full of something I couldn't name. I'm not leaving you. Yes, his voice soft. You are. I won't. I can't. The bond will survive. He crossed to me, knelt, took my face in his hands. It will hurt. It will feel like dying, but you'll survive. And when you're strong enough, when you've healed, you'll find a way to live. A good life. A life worth… Stop. I grabbed his wrists, held on. Stop deciding what I can survive. Stop protecting me from yourself. I'd rather die with you than live without you. He smiled. It was the first time I'd seen him really smile. Not the cold smile, not the controlled smile, not the mask he wore for the world. A real smile, sad and beautiful and full of love. That's why I have to do this, he whispered, because you'd rather die with me, and I'd rather die than let you. He kissed me, soft this time, gentle, the kiss of a wolf saying goodbye. Then he stood, walked to the cave entrance, paused. Wait here, however long it takes. Wait until you can't hear them anymore. Then wait longer. Then go east. Find a pack called Moonshadow. Tell them Draven sent you. They'll take care of you. Draven, I love you. 3 words, spoken so softly I almost didn't hear them over the waterfall. Then he was gone, and I was alone. The waiting was the worst part. I sat in that cave for hours, maybe days. Time lost meaning. I listened to the waterfall, to the forest, to the distant sounds of battle that faded and swelled and faded again. The bond pulsed with Draven's emotions, pain, rage, exhaustion, and underneath it all, love, steady and constant and unbreakable. Then, suddenly, nothing. The bond went dark, not stretched, not thin, not weak. Dark. Empty. Like something had cut it in half. I screamed until my throat bled, until the waterfall drowned me out. Until there was nothing left inside me but the terrible, certain knowledge that he was gone. I don't remember leaving the cave. Don't remember walking east. Don't remember finding the Moonshadow pack. Don't remember the weeks that followed, the healing, the learning to eat and sleep and breathe without him. But I must have done all those things because I survived. And surviving meant living with the hole where my mate used to be, the hollow years. A year passed, then 2, then 3. I lived with the Moonshadow pack, in a territory so far from Silver Crescent that I couldn't feel the bond at all anymore. couldn't feel anything except the emptiness where Draven used to be. They were kind to me, the moon shadow wolves. Gave me work, gave me a place to sleep. Didn't ask questions about the hollow look in my eyes, or the way I sometimes stared at the moon without blinking. But they couldn't give me what I'd lost.
Nothing could.
And then, on the 3rd anniversary of the day Draven died, a wolf appeared at the border. A wolf I recognized. Theron. Let me tell you what 3 years of grief feels like. It feels like walking through water, like breathing through cloth, like living in a world that's slightly less real than it used to be. I'd learned to function, to smile when expected, to speak when spoken to pretend that the hole inside me didn't exist. But every night, I dreamed of him, dreamed of his eyes, his voice, his hands on my face, dreamed of the cave, the waterfall, the moment he said he loved me, dreamed of the bond snapping and the darkness rushing in. I woke from those dreams crying more often than not. The Moonshadow Wolves stopped asking about it after the first few months. Some things, they understood, couldn't be fixed, could only be survived. I was surviving, barely. And then Theron appeared. He looked different, older, harder. His eyes held shadows that hadn't been there before. And his scent, once clean, straightforward, carried something darker now. Guilt, maybe, or grief of his own. He found me in the Omega quarters, every pack has them, and stood in the doorway the same way Draven had stood 3 years ago. Elara. My name. I hadn't heard it spoken in months. Most wolves here just called me the New One. Theron. My voice was flat, dead. You have a lot of courage, showing your face here. He flinched. I know I don't deserve to. Why did you do it? The question had burned inside me for 3 years. Why had he betrayed his alpha? Why had he sold me to Lillian? Why had he chosen her over Draven, over the pack, over everything he'd supposedly served? He looked at the floor, because I thought I was saving him. I waited. Lillian's father, Alpha Marcus, he approached me years ago, told me he could save the pack, stop the rogue attacks, give us the warriors we needed to survive. All I had to do was help him. Little things at first, information, then bigger things, then you sold me to his daughter. He looked up, met my eyes. I thought if you were gone, Draven would go back to the plan, marry Lillian, save the pack. I thought, his voice broke. I thought love was a weakness he couldn't afford. And now I know it was the only thing keeping him alive. I frowned. He's dead, Theron. I felt the bond die. I felt he's not dead. The words hit me like physical blows. He's not dead, Theron repeated. Lillian's people took him that night, after you escaped. They didn't kill him, they couldn't. The Lycan blood in him made him too valuable. They've been holding him for 3 years, torturing him, trying to break him, trying to make him... I wasn't listening anymore. I was running. Theron caught me at the border. Elara, stop, you can't just... 3 years. I rounded on him, fury burning through the numbness for the first time in years. 3 years I've been living with a hole in my chest, thinking he was dead. 3 years he's been suffering while I did nothing. And you want me to stop? I want you to think. He grabbed my arms, held me still. Lillian's expecting you. That's why I'm here. She knows you're alive, knows you're with Moonshadow. She's been waiting for you to come for him. Then she'll get what she's waiting for. No, he shook me, just once, hard enough to make me focus. If you go now, alone, angry, you'll walk into a trap, and then you'll both die. Is that what he suffered 3 years for? I stared at him. He's alive, Theron said quietly. That's what matters. He's alive, and he's been holding on to the bond, to the memory of you, to the hope that somehow, someday, you'd find each other again. Don't throw that away. I wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to run until I found him, wherever he was, whatever it cost. But Theron was right, and I hated him for it. We planned for a month of learning Lillian's territory, a month of gathering allies, gathering information, gathering courage, a month of feeling the bond pulse weakly in my chest. Not dead, I realized now, but sleeping, waiting, holding on. He was alive. My mate was alive, and I was going to get him back. The plan was simple. Theron would enter Lillian's pack as a returning ally. He'd spent 3 years playing both sides, maintaining his cover, making them believe he was still theirs. They trusted him, or trusted enough. I would enter as a prisoner, bound, defeated, brought to Lillian as a gift, a peace offering, proof that Theron had finally captured the Omega who'd caused so much trouble. Once inside, once close enough to Draven, once the moment was right, we'd fight, or die trying. The day came. I let them bind my wrists with silver, let them march me through the gates of Lillian's pack, let them present me to her like tribute, like victory, like the ending she'd been waiting for. She looked the same as she had 3 years ago, beautiful, polished, perfect, and utterly, completely evil. Elara, she smiled. I knew you'd come eventually. They always do. I said nothing, just stared at her with the dead eyes I'd practiced for weeks. She's broken, Theron said, his voice flat. Took me months to track her, months to catch her. She's not the same wolf who escaped. Lillian circled me, studied me, nodded. Good. Broken is exactly what I need. She stopped in front of me. You want to see him? Your precious mate? The wolf who's been screaming your name for 3 years while I want to see him dead. The words came out cold. Perfect. The words of a wolf who'd stopped caring, stopped hoping, stopped loving. Lillian's eyes widened. Then she laughed. Oh, this is perfect. Absolutely perfect. She grabbed my chin, forced me to meet her eyes. You really have broken, haven't you? The bond. You can't even feel it anymore, can you? I shook my head. Lie. The bond was screaming inside me, screaming with his presence, his pain, his desperate love. But she couldn't feel that. Only mates could. Take her to the cells, Lillian ordered. Put her where she can see him. Let her watch what happens to wolves who think they can defy me. The cells were underground, dark, damp, full of the smell of pain and blood and hopelessness. They chained me to a wall, silver chains, burning cold, and left me in darkness. But I could see him. Through the bars of his cell, across the narrow corridor, Draven hung from chains on the wall. He was barely recognizable. 3 years of torture had carved new lines into his face, new scars across his body, new shadows under his eyes. His hair was longer, matted, dirty. His clothes were rags. But his eyes, when they found me, were the same. Silver, burning, full of everything he'd never been able to say. Elara. His voice in my mind, weak, faint, but there. I'm here, I sent back. I'm here. I'm not leaving. Something like a smile crossed his face. Then the door opened and Lillian walked in. She carried a blade. Not an ordinary blade. This one glowed faintly in the darkness, etched with symbols I didn't recognize, but instinctively feared. 3 years, she said, walking toward Draven's cell. 3 years I've been trying to break him. 3 years of pain, of darkness, of everything I could think of. And still, she glanced back at me. Still, he held on. Still, he believed you'd come. She stopped in front of him. But now you're here. Now he can see you. Now he has hope again. She raised the blade. And hope, she said softly, is the most painful thing to destroy. I screamed, threw myself against my chains. The silver burned, but I didn't care. Didn't feel it. Didn't feel anything except the need to reach him, save him, stop her. The blade descended. Draven's scream echoed through the cells. And the bond? The bond exploded with pain so intense I couldn't breathe. The blood price. Pain. That's all I knew for what felt like hours. Pain that wasn't mine, but felt like it was. Pain that came through the bond in waves, each one worse than the last, each one carrying Draven's agony directly into my soul. I couldn't see what Lillian was doing, could only hear. The wet sounds, the crackling sounds, the sounds of things that should never happen to anyone, let alone the wolf I loved. And then, suddenly, silence. The pain stopped. The bond went quiet. Too quiet. I don't know how long I hung there, waiting for something, anything to tell me he was still alive. Minutes. Hours. Time didn't exist in that darkness. But eventually, footsteps. Lillian appeared in front of my cell, smiling, blood on her hands. His blood, dripping from her fingers. "He's still alive," she said. "Barely, but alive." I sagged against my chains. Relief so intense it hurt. Why? The word came out broken. Why keep him alive if you're just going to… Because dead, he's useless. She crouched in front of me. Alive, he's leverage. Leverage over his pack. Leverage over the Lycan bloodline. Leverage over… She smiled. You. I stared at her. 3 years ago, I made a mistake. I underestimated the bond. I thought if I hurt him enough, he'd forget you. I thought pain could break what fate created. She shook her head. I was wrong. She stood, walked to the bars of my cell. So now we try something different. Now we use you. I didn't like where this was going. Here's how this works, Lillian continued. You're going to watch. Every day, every session. You're going to watch what I do to him. And you're going to feel it through the bond. And you're going to know that it's happening because of you. No. Yes, she smiled. And eventually, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe next month, you're going to beg me to stop. You're going to offer me anything, everything, whatever I want. I have nothing you want. She laughed. Oh, little Omega, you have exactly what I want. She leaned closer. You have the ability to make him surrender, to make him give me what I need. The Lycan blood in him carries power, ancient power, power that could make me alpha of everything. But he won't give it willingly. He won't break for me. Her eyes glittered. But he'll break for you. She was right. Over the next weeks, I learned exactly how right. Every day they took him from his cell. Every day I heard the sounds. Every day I felt the pain. Every day the bond carried his suffering into me, until I couldn't tell where his agony ended and mine began. And every night they brought him back, broken, bleeding, barely conscious, but alive, because he wouldn't die, wouldn't give them that victory, wouldn't leave me alone in this darkness. I started begging on the 10th day. Not for me, for him. Please, I whispered to Lillian when she came to gloat. Please, I'll do anything, just stop hurting him. She smiled. Anything? Yes. Then convince him to give me what I want. I tried. That night, when they'd thrown him back in his cell, I reached through the bond, found his consciousness, faint and flickering. Draven. Ilara. His voice in my mind, weak but there. You have to give her what she wants. You have to… No, please. I can't watch this anymore. I can't. If I give her the power, she kills us both. She kills my pack. She kills everyone. A pause. Would you rather live with that guilt than watch me suffer? I didn't answer. Because he was right. And I hated it. The weeks became months. I lost count of the days. Lost track of time. Lost everything except the rhythm of pain and silence, and the faint pulse of the bond that told me he was still alive. But something was changing. In him, in me, in the bond itself. The pain wasn't just pain anymore. It was also connection. Every moment of suffering we shared bound us closer. Every scream that echoed through the bond carved away another layer of the walls between us. I started to know him. Not the alpha, not the monster, not the ruthless wolf who'd bought me like livestock. Him, the boy who'd killed his father to save his pack and never forgiven himself. The wolf who'd spent years alone because he believed he didn't deserve love. The mate who'd rather die than watch me suffer. I knew him now, and I loved him. Not the bond love, the fate love, the magic of wolves finding their other half. Real love. Chosen love. Love that had grown through pain and darkness, and the absolute worst either of us could imagine. He felt it too. I knew, because he started sending it back. Through the bond, in the quiet moments between torture sessions, I felt his love flowing into me. Felt him holding me across the distance between our cells. Felt him choosing me, every moment, every day, even as they destroyed him. That's when I stopped begging. That's when I started planning. The escape came together slowly. Theron, still playing his role as loyal ally, smuggled me information. Guard rotations, door codes, weak points in the walls. Other prisoners, broken but not destroyed, whispered what they knew. And Draven, even in his chains, even in his pain, used the last of his strength to guide me. There's a tunnel, he said one night, behind the third cell. My father told me about it years ago. He helped build this place. It leads outside the territory. Can you walk? A pause. I can try. It was enough. The night came. I'd been there 4 months, maybe 5. Time had lost meaning. But I knew the guards' patterns, knew the moments of darkness between their rounds, knew exactly when to move. I'd saved food, hidden it in my cell, shared it with Draven through the bond, making him eat, making him keep his strength. He was weaker than I'd ever seen him, but he was alive. And tonight, he was getting out. The guard change happened at midnight. 3 minutes of darkness between the old guard leaving and the new guard arriving. 3 minutes to get out of my cell, across the corridor, into his cell, and free him from his chains. 3 minutes that would decide everything. I counted the footsteps, heard them fade, heard the silence, moved. My cell door, Theron had left it unlocked hours ago. I slipped through, pressed against the wall, counted my heartbeats. 1, 2, 3, across the corridor. 4, 5, 6. His cell door, locked. But Theron had given me the key. 7, 8, 9. Inside, dark. The smell of blood and sickness, and him. 10. 11, 12. His chains, silver, burning to touch, but I didn't care. 13, 14, 15. The first lock opened. He slumped against me, barely conscious. 16, 17, 18. The second lock, his arms free. He gasped, pain and relief mixing. 19, 20, 21. Can you move? I whispered.
I can try.
22, 23, 24. We stumbled toward the back of his cell, toward the wall, toward the tunnel his father had built decades ago. 25, 26, 27. The wall, solid, no opening. 28, 29, 30. Where he pressed against a stone, it moved. An inch, another inch. 31, 32, 33. The wall opened, darkness beyond. The tunnel. 34, 35, 36.
Shouts from outside. They'd found my empty cell.
37, 38, 39. We crawled into the tunnel. Draven first, then me. The wall slid shut behind us. 40. Darkness. Silence. Freedom. We crawled for what felt like hours. The tunnel was narrow, low, pitch black. I couldn't see anything, could only feel Draven ahead of me, his presence in the bond guiding me forward. Behind us, eventually, the sounds of pursuit faded. Ahead of us, eventually, a glimmer of light. Moonlight. We emerged into a forest I didn't recognize. Trees older than any I'd seen. Air cleaner than any I'd breathed. The moon overhead, full and bright and beautiful. Draven collapsed beside me. I caught him, held him, felt his heart beating, slow but steady, against my chest. We made it, I whispered. We made it. He smiled, weak, broken, but smiling. Then his eyes focused on something behind me, and the smile died. I turned. Lillian stood at the edge of the clearing, alone, unarmed, smiling. "Did you really think it would be that easy?" she asked softly. Behind her, wolves emerged from the shadows, dozens of them, surrounding us. "We're in the middle of nowhere," I said. "No pack territory for miles. No one to hear you scream." She walked toward us, stopped a few feet away. "But I'm not here to kill you." She looked at Draven. "I'm here to offer you a choice." She held out her hand. In it, a blade. The same blade she'd used on him before. "Kill her," she said quietly. "Kill your mate and I'll let you go. I'll let your pack live. I'll end this war before it starts." Draven stared at the blade. "Or don't," Lillian shrugged. "And I'll kill her myself. Then I'll kill you. Then I'll destroy your pack, one wolf at a time, starting with the Omegas who took her in." She placed the blade in his hand. "Choose." The choice. The blade felt heavy in his hand. I could feel it through the bond. His exhaustion, his pain, his desperate love for me. And underneath all of that, something else. Certainty. He looked at me. "I love you," he said quietly. "More than I've ever loved anything. More than I thought I could love." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I know." "I'm sorry. Don't be." He turned to Lillian and drove the blade into her chest. She stared at him, looked down at the handle protruding from her heart, looked back up at his face. "How?" she gasped. "How did you—" "You forgot something," he said quietly. "You forgot that I'm not just a wolf. I'm lichen, and lichens don't break." She fell. The wolves behind her hesitated, looked at each other, looked at their leader dying on the forest floor, and then they ran. Not all of them. Some stayed. Some fought. But without Lillian's magic holding them together, without her power binding them to her will, they were just wolves. Scared. Confused. Defeated. We fought them together. Draven, barely standing, fighting with everything he had left. Me, weak from months in chains, fighting beside him. The bond between us blazing brighter than ever, feeding us strength, feeding us courage, feeding us love. One by one they fell. One by one they ran. And then, suddenly, it was over. We stood in the clearing, surrounded by bodies, covered in blood that wasn't ours. The moon overhead, the forest silent. Draven looked at me, I looked at him. And we laughed. Laughed until we cried. Laughed until we couldn't stand. Laughed until we collapsed together on the forest floor, holding each other, breathing each other. Finally free. I thought you were dead, I whispered. For 3 years, I thought... I know. He held me tighter. I felt it. Felt your grief through the bond. It was the only thing that kept me alive. Knowing you were out there. Knowing you were hurting. Know I had to survive to find you. I came back. You came back. He pulled back, looked at my face. You came back for me. Always. He kissed me. Different from the first time. Different from the desperate kiss in the Omega quarters, the goodbye kiss in the cave. This was something new, something earned, something chosen. This was the kiss of 2 wolves who had walked through hell and found each other on the other side. We made our way back to Silver Crescent. It took weeks. We were weak, wounded, barely surviving. But we survived together. The pack greeted us with shock, with tears, with joy. They'd thought him dead, thought me dead, thought everything lost. But we were alive, and we were together. Theron met us at the border, fell to his knees, begged forgiveness. Draven looked at him for a long moment, then helped him stand. You made mistakes, he said quietly. But you also helped us escape. You kept her alive. You brought her back to me. Theron's eyes filled with tears. Consider your debt paid, Draven said. But if you ever betray this pack again, I won't. I swear I won't. And somehow, looking at his face, I believed him. The weeks became months. I healed. Draven healed. The bond between us grew stronger every day, fed by presence, by touch, by the simple miracle of being together. He didn't hide from me anymore, didn't push me away, didn't pretend the bond didn't exist. Instead, he showed me everything. The rage of being alpha, the pain of killing his father, the loneliness of years spent believing he didn't deserve love, the terror of watching me suffer, the joy of finding me again. And I showed him everything too. The years of being invisible, the pain of watching him walk away, the grief of thinking him dead, the hope that kept me alive, the love that brought me back. We built something new together, not the bond, that had always been there, but something on top of it, something we chose, something we earned, trust. The full moon rose. 1 year after we escaped Lillian's prison. 1 year of healing, of learning, of loving. The pack gathered in the clearing where Draven had first brought me all those years ago. Where I'd been sold like livestock. Where everything began. Tonight, everything would end. And begin again. Draven stood before the pack. His wolves, his family, his responsibility. And beside him, for the first time, I stood as something more than an Omega, as his mate. Tonight, he said, his voice carrying through the clearing, we honor the old ways. Tonight, we bind what fate has joined. He turned to me. Elara, his voice soft now, private, just for me. I bought you once, treated you like property, like a transaction. I was wrong. I've spent years learning how wrong, and now? He dropped to one knee. The pack gasped. Alphas don't kneel. Not to anyone, not ever. But Draven knelt. Now I'm asking, he continued. Not taking, not demanding, asking. He pulled something from his pocket. A cord woven from moonlight vine, the traditional binding cord of our people. Used only for true mates. Used only for love. Will you bind yourself to me? Not because fate says so, not because a bond demands it, but because you choose me, because you love me, because you want to spend the rest of your life, however long that is, by my side? Tears streamed down my face. Yes. He stood, wrapped the cord around our joined wrists, tied the knot that would bind us for life. The pack howled. The moon shone down, and I kissed my mate. You might be wondering why I'm telling you this story. Not just to entertain you, not just to make you feel something, but because there's something I need you to understand. Love isn't what you think it is. It's not the bond. It's not fate. It's not magic pulling two people together, whether they want it or not. Love is what happens after. It's choosing someone every day, even when it's hard, even when they're broken, even when the world tells you they're not worth it. It's walking through hell and holding hands on the other side. It's forgiveness when forgiveness seems impossible. It's hope when hope seems dead. Draven and I were bound by fate, but that's not what saved us. What saved us was choice. His choice to protect me. My choice to come back for him. Our choice to keep loving, keep fighting, keep believing, even when everything told us to give up. That's the truth I want you to carry. Fate might bring people together, but love is what keeps them there. And love, real love, is always a choice. So choose. Choose the people who matter. Choose to fight for them. Choose to forgive them. Choose to believe in them, even when they don't believe in themselves, because in the end, that's all that matters. That's all that ever mattered. That's the bond that can never be broken. Will fate tear them apart? You've just witnessed the moment everything changed. An Omega sold as breeding stock. A ruthless alpha who expected nothing but duty. And a mate bond that exploded between them like lightning. Unexpected, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. But the moon has a cruel sense of humor, because just as Draven finally stopped fighting fate, just as their first kiss shattered every wall between them, she walked in. Lillian. Beautiful. Powerful. Promised to Draven in an alliance that means survival for his entire pack. Now, our Omega stands in the crossfire of politics, power, and a love that shouldn't exist. The bond screams for her alpha. Her wolf howls for his touch. But Lillian's eyes hold centuries of training in the art of eliminating threats. What happens when the moon chooses someone the world rejects? What happens when the alpha must choose between his pack's survival and his mate's life? What happens when the other woman decides this Omega is a problem that needs solving, permanently? One Omega, two wolves fighting for the same alpha, and a bond that could save them all, or destroy everything. Click the link below to continue the journey, because some loves are worth fighting for, and some enemies don't fight fair. Werewolves aren't like in the stories humans tell. They survive. But when the moon chooses, sometimes surviving isn't enough. Liked what you saw? If this story gripped your heart, if you felt the bond snap into place, if you're already imagining what Lillian will do next, like this video so the moon knows you're invested. Share with a friend who needs more dark romance in their life. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a chapter. The pack is growing stronger every day. New episodes drop every week. And trust us, Lillian is just getting started. Comment below, who are you rooting for? The fated Omega or the powerful Alpha's daughter? Until next time, wolves, stay wild.